Hi, and welcome to Make More Love, Not War. This is Terah Harrison, licensed professional counselor and relationship expert.
This is her husband, Jeff Harrison, of no qualifications whatsoever, just a normal dude.
Hello, and welcome to Make More Love, Not War. We are here with Amy Tron. You might remember her from the 2 other times she's been on. We love her so much. We interviewed her a while back. It was December of 2017 that we released it, and it was the 4 pillars. And then we gifted you with her her latest, the gift of compassion, around the holidays this past December. So we have her here again. And so we have been going through the 4 pillars one by one. So the last one we went through was compassion, and today is forgiveness. But for all of our listeners who haven't heard the other 2, can you go through the 4 pillars and explain them a little, just briefly for them?
Of course. Hi, Terah. Hi, Jeff.
Hi. I'm just going straight into it. Hello.
Nice to be here again.
Yes.
And really appreciate you guys to, send this out for everybody for their healing and, for spreading the word. So for me, the 4 pillars, I actually heard from one of my friend. It is a Hawaiian indigenous program where the elders will gather the tribe, and they will have this ritual. It's called Hanaponopono, where they will talk about, all the conflict, between the people. And then they go through these 4 things, which is, compassion, forgiveness, love, and gratitude. And by the end of the meeting, they will forgive each other, and they hug each other, and they go on with their lives. And I thought that is just amazing. And I really thought about it, these 4 pillars, and I realized the path to happiness and freedom, a lot you can derive from this practice. So in this practice, the elders will gather the people, and then they will tell each other, how they feel, and they will feel they're heard because they'll tell everyone their grievances. And then there were, the first sentence is compassion is I'm sorry. So where you feel acknowledged, whatever happened to you, however you feel, you have the right to your feelings. So they will tell you, hey, I'm sorry that you feel hurt, or you feel, frustrated, or you feel like somebody may have done you wrong. And then after that, and they will say, I forgive, or they will say, you forgive. So basically, that's a forgiveness that they give themselves and give to others. So it's almost like a cleansing. And a while ago, you said it's springtime and it's best time for cleanse. So you first acknowledge, and second, you cleanse away the pain. And then the third one is saying, I love you, or I love myself, in which way you give yourself the gift of divine unconditional love. And at the end, you say, I thank you, or appreciate, which solidifies, what we have is so good, and being appreciative, it really brings out the best in everyone. So for me, these 4 processes, and I think it is a way toward happiness and freedom.
After interviewing you and then listening back to the 4 pillars a while ago, I was like, this is really cool. So I have brought it into my practice. I'm happy to tell you that I brought it into my practice in some areas where I found it, from my perspective, to be especially powerful when there is not a person there because the person has died, mm-hmm. or the person isn't capable of being present, mm-hmm. emotionally or physically, or for whatever reason that you're not going to get closure with this person in in real time. I found it to be really powerful, even as for individuals to go through this process themselves with my guidance. But I think that you could also, once you really know this process, go through this to be able to let go of old wounds that maybe have been there since childhood, or maybe have been there for years, that have really held you up and really impacted other relationships. So I've seen this healing, just knowing these 4 pillars. I've seen it in practice, and it's been really amazing.
Yeah.
I think that it's great for people to do together, but also when you're not able to, you can. In fact, I had an empty chair, and I had the person bring pictures
Wonderful.
of of these more than one relationship.
Yeah.
Where there were wounds, and we were able to work through this and release all of these things, and not seeing this person anymore because the work is done.
That's great.
So it's just, I've firsthand witnessed how amazing this process is.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful for the job that you've done and the healing that you've done. And that is a really great point. I think you really do not need the other person to be present to have these 4 things, because it's not about the other person per se. It's about you, how you release those pain and anger. And that person can be, either passed away or still present, and you don't feel like, to talk, but you can still forgive them in your heart. As we said before, not forgive them for, the wrong they did, but forgive them to release the pain within you. As we said in the first time, it's the poisonous dart in your heart keep on bleeding poison, and you do it for the self. So you don't really need to have the other person affirming, oh yeah, I received it. But I guess in the energy and vibration field, things are healed in that way.
I thought the point that you made the first time was that I thought was really interesting, was the fact that, saying that you have the anger in you, how a lot of people, if they do forgive, it's almost as if they're saying that the other person, it was okay. Like releasing that anger. Like if you release that anger, it's like you've given up or something. And
yeah,
I thought that was a good point you made the very first time.
Right. I think it's never okay for people to hurt you purposefully, but a lot of times people don't know what they're doing because they only have limited awareness. They lash out because maybe they themselves suffer trauma. Of course, it's not right for them to do that, whatever, upon you. However, there's one Chinese saying is to be angry with yourself, or to be angry with others is to be angry with yourself. You're not, the other party may or may not know you're angry. They're not hurt, but you're the one who's hurt the most. So to have compassion for the self, to treat the self well, you need to find a way of forgiving. And in the first interview, we talked about think, hey, whatever owed from whatever I have paid off. Now we travel parallel lives and we will never meet, but I do let go of this pain, or let go of this connection. So it's a way of releasing.
I have a story around that.
Yeah.
To illustrate what you're talking about. And I think the important thing here is setting that boundary that you mentioned. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to illustrate that with a story. I just recently had a thing in my family with a family member who had behavior that was not acceptable.
Yeah.
And so, in the past, I think back to the old patterns in the family, and in our family, I probably would have been like, that's fine, and I would have still been angry, but I would have made sure that my family member felt good about what they did, even if it was wrong, because that was how I was taught to be, as human giver. Make other people feel good. Doesn't really matter how you feel. So I have been, of course, just in my life and in my development as a therapist, very, very aware of this pattern and have worked for years to change it. So what I did in this situation when this person had behavior that was not okay is I set a boundary with this person, and I said, this behavior was not okay. So, and I set a boundary around it where I said, well, we're not going, it was a meeting that was canceled.
Yes.
And it was canceled at the last minute and all this kind of stuff. And just disrespectful of my time kind of thing. And so I told this person, we're not going to have another meeting. And then for me, I let go. I wasn't upset with her because she's just going to be who she is. And this is what she does. And that's her.
Yes.
And then here's me. I'm a separate person. I don't have to carry what she does within me. And so really I'm not carrying it anymore. I remember the situation. Obviously I've not forgotten it. I'm telling you about it, but I just don't carry anything. And that's really freeing to be able to forgive in the sense that you're like, well, the behavior's not okay, but I'm going to set a boundary so I don't put myself in that situation again. So now I can release that.
Very good. Very good. Very empowering.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And now I don't have to walk around internalizing the family drama as it goes in my family,
Yeah, definitely. So I definitely think there's what to be said about I think about forgiving. I think a lot of religion or scripture, they always have forgiveness as part of the teaching, no matter what religion you are. However, a lot of people misconstrue. It took me a long time to understand it as well, because the first thing is like, they did me wrong. Why should I forgive them? Because you hold that them accountable. You almost like they owe me. You feel like, okay, they need to pay me back.
Yes.
You need, you feel entitled. You're almost like a power. Like,
oh, now I'm angry, so I'm the one in power. They did wrong.
Yes.
So I'm the one in power.
They have to pay me back.
Yeah.
So it's in a way, that's why a lot of people withhold that anger within them.
Yeah, because anger does feel powerful.
Yeah.
It's misguided.
Yeah.
But it does feel powerful. It's something that you hold within you that feels like, oh, if I'm angry, then I'm strong, which is not true, actually.
And
it's the strength is the vulnerability, not the anger.
Exactly. And you feel entitled, like, hey, they owe me something. And like Jeff said a while ago, if you hold this anger within you, you cause illness. And you're the one that's going to hurt, because they don't really feel your anger unless, they see you once in a while. They go, oh, okay, that person's angry. But that doesn't bother them nearly as much as bothers you. And you're brewing and brewing. And we all know our physical wellness have a lot to do with our mental wellness. So part of having compassion for the self and love the self is to let go of the past. I was listening to Carolyn Mays was talking about the 7 chakras, and then she realized the reason why people get ill is because a lot of the mental things they have, like unforgiveness and not being authentic to themselves. So that was very interesting for me to see the connection between our, I guess, derailment from our authentic self, and that the gap a lot of times cause the anguish, and which in turn cause our physical illness.
So to back that up, that point that you just made, another researcher, Emily Nagoski, that we've interviewed on this podcast as well, her interview is called How to Transform Your Sex Life. But she has a PhD in health education, and she's a very avid TED Talk person. And I mean, she's really hardcore on research, and she was researching, really hard, like what are the things that make us healthy? What is the answer to that? And all of this research brought her back to one word. Would you like to know the word?
Yes.
Love.
Yes.
Love is the answer.
It is.
The Beatles were right.
Yes.
But that's what came back. And so, of course, the step after forgiveness is love. And so I love, but I love how you're talking about forgiveness makes space for love.
Yes.
Is what you're talking about.
Yes.
So when you can release by forgiving, then that makes space in your body for love. And love is what heals the body.
Exactly.
And the mind and the spirit.
Yes.
All things.
Yes. You put very well. So just from what you said, I actually, on the way drive here, and I heard Beatles Imagine.
Oh, I love it.
It was just
Yes.
like, I totally get it. You know, we all won, you know, and,
Yes.
but I want to talk a little bit more about it in a little later
Okay.
on this, about being oneness. Also, when you talk about forgive, the image coming out is breathe out. And love is breathe in. So in Chinese, the way they don't say, like in Western, say breathing is breathe in and breathe out. That's how we always say. In yoga class, take a breath in for 5, then breathe out, right?
You sound like an instructor right there.
Yeah.
It's funny.
And so in Chinese, the word for breathing is hu xi. Hu is actually breathing out. Xi is breathing in. So in Chinese, they actually breathe out first and then breathe in, because you can empty everything out and make room for what's coming in, the freshness come in. You cannot breathe in because you're so muddled with all the other things. You cannot fully breathe in the love and light if you do not breathe out first. So you have to create this vacuum. Let it drain, let it out, let it empty, let it be vacuum. And then when you breathe in, you don't have to force it because there's already a vacuum. There's a positive pressure. You just allow. Like in Reiki, we don't push the energy to somebody. You allow it to come in. So it's very smooth, there's no force. So the only thing is you let go, breathe out. There's no force there. You create a vacuum and automatically, you know, love and light comes in, just feel it up.
That is beautiful. I love that.
That's a great visual.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It makes it really clear on what you're doing.
It's easy, effortless.
It's just like water flows.
Yeah, you don't have to push anything, because pushing is hard. Pushing is stressful. Pushing is, you know, you're going against the current.
Sounds like very feminine energy.
Yeah.
Listen up, guys. The feminine energy is healing. Access your feminine energy.
So there's a lot of interesting things, you know, when you look into how the words are made up on each other. It's pretty amazing, you know, because I never thought, why do we in Chinese say breathe out before we say breathe in? But it was always natural because I grew up with it. And then I come to the United States, I'm like, breathe in, breathe out. And then I go, Chinese is backwards. Or is it not? And then you look at the philosophy into it, like, oh, wow, that
Makes more sense.
That's pretty
deep. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's intelligent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to Kara May's, whatever she was saying. One thing was a little bit, feel like tough love, but I've been thinking about it. And she said, a lot of times we need courage. And I didn't understand her at first. And she said, to blame others or to blame a situation is showing that you haven't developed the courage yet. So it feels like tough love, because she said a lot of times we blaming a situation, blaming our childhood, blaming our parents, blaming the circumstances. Well, are we how we've been hurt? That's why we did whatever we did. And she said, basically, quote unquote, get over it. And it feels like, oh, me, it's tough, you know. But when you really think about it, you know, having courage to step forward, you know, the way our feet are point, how are we our feet point? They're pointing forward. And that's mean that you look forward. You know, a lot of times if we want it to dwell in the past, we miss the present. We miss what's the price, if if we keep on saying, oh, we want, deal with the past, sort out all the things before I can go forward. But in fact, a lot of time, a present, the gift has been squandered. And I think we have to make peace with the past, for sure. But we cannot change the past. We cannot change the past. But we're powerful in the moment, in the present moment. And we have to let go of the past and forgive the past. Like breathe out before we can go forward. And we need to make that instead of hold on something as our power, as our right, but ultimately it hurts us.
So I have something else to back
Yes.
that up too.
Yes.
We're flowing here. So, Relationships First is an organization. I'm on their advisory board, and they're in Dallas. It's an amazing nonprofit organization, and it's created by the people that created Imago Therapy. It's a separate organization from Imago Therapy. But so what they're doing is they are spreading safe conversations,
Mm-hmm.
and the point behind this. So there is a scientific aspect of this as well, but just the general point around this is that the wounds that we bring from childhood, no matter how great yours was or how bad yours was, is the wound of not being heard, not being understood, not feeling that you have a voice.
Mm-hmm.
And so Safe Conversations is all about healing that wound in present time. You
Mm-hmm.
don't need to go back and like dredge up the past and talk about all the things and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But if you create a safe space between two people, or a safe space in a group, like Hanapanon. I never can you say it? I'm just terrible.
Ho'oponopono.
Yes, thank you. You're awesome. So, like, they create that safe space in the group, which I think is amazing.
Right.
So you can use Safe Conversations in groups. You can use it between individuals. You can use it in intimate relationships. I use it with my daughter. You can use Safe. I use it when I'm checking out at the grocery store and people, like tell me things. So the idea of Safe Conversations is there are 3 steps to Safe Conversations. There's mirroring what somebody says to check for accuracy. And there is validating. So again, this is sounding like the 4 pillars a little bit too, right? There's validating, and then there is empathizing.
Mm-hmm.
And so what that does neurologically, though, and we know this because beginning in the 90s, they're with fMRIs and stuff, they've been able to see how the brain changes, is that we have these old neural pathways from our wounded self. So you build a schema around whatever wound or trauma you have that says, I'm not worthy of protection, or people aren't safe, or men aren't safe, or nobody loves me, or whatever, all those negative things. And so when you are feeling heard and understood and validated and safe in relationships, you create a competing neural pathway that eventually overtakes the old neural pathway. So that's the healing in the brain that we're talking about here.
Right. That's amazing. And when you were talking about holding safe space, and remind me, because you're, Reiki certified as well as I am. And that's what we do. We hold a safe space for our clients, and we allow self-healing, and our body is amazing. It self-heals. And so we have this love and light. We hold this place of unconditionally acceptance and unconditional love, and the body just goes to do its work. It's basically what we're doing is unblocking and let the body, allow the body the perfect environment to heal. And it was interesting. I was taught in Reiki that, being a Reiki 1-2 practitioner, we can do distance healing. And this is like amazing tool to me, because distance for me, it can mean past or the future. So, and I was able to do this, heal myself, my own child. And sometimes I go there And I just sit there and listen to my, most vulnerable age, me being a kid. I listen to her. I validate what you said, what she's saying. And I provide this safety, a safe place for her. And then I give her the motherly love I have now to the child in me. And I say, oh, you know what? It's okay. You're completely loved. You're completely loved by universe. You're just amazing. You're perfect in the eyes of God. You are valued. You are worthy. And then I give her a hug, and it's so healing. And you almost feel like you can change the past. You almost feel like it is well with my soul. In a way, it's really, you don't have to be Reiki practitioner to do that. Just, go into meditation or go into a quiet place, go sit in the nature, listen to birds or creek or in the forest and just feel this, forest does for me because I feel all the trees are protecting me, and then feel this protected energy and just go back to your childhood, be the loving father, be the loving mother, and tell him or her it's okay, and she's strong and she can survive whatever it is, and the universe loves her and him, and do it over and over until you feel this release of pain. And I think that really works, at least for me.
Yeah I have done that in hypnosis, actually. It's what you're talking about in psychology, Babel, is internal family systems theory, which is the idea that you have these selves at different ages and you have parental figures all inside you. So you have like your 5-year-old self, your 13-year-old self, your 22-year-old self, wherever there are wounds present.
Yeah.
But then, like you said, you have the mother that you can bring, or the father that you can bring and heal that child.
Yeah.
And I actually had a very powerful session in hypnosis where I was able to access all those parts of myself.
Great.
and be able to heal them and release pain that had happened to me. So that was very empowering. And I think if I would have stayed in a place of wanting to blame my actual parents or other adults in my life for doing that and not wanting and being stuck there and not wanting to really go through the healing, then I would be doing what you were talking about, what Carolyn said, is that, being stuck in, I'm just going to blame somebody, which I'm going to be transparent here. I was stuck in that for a while. But how much more joy is in my life to get out of being stuck in that and be able to heal myself.
Yes.
So there's many ways to do that.
Right.
Through meditation, if you need guidance, hypnosis. I've experienced being very wonderful for that. I've heard other people talking about using ayahuasca practices to do that. But yes, all the same concept, and we all have that within us, is that internal family that we can heal, and we can use safe conversations within that of validating and empathizing with ourselves.
Right. And
ourselves.
Then, exactly. So I like when you said safe conversation. So there is going back to Chinese words again, the Chinese words listening, it's very interesting. So to the left side, it's the ear. Okay, so it's a combination of words mixed together to become the word listening. So the left side is the writing for the ear, okay? And on the right side, on the top, it is the eyes. And then has one, and on the bottom is a heart. So basically, it's teaching you, hey, when you listen with your ears, you listen with your eyes, and you listen with your heart. And the heart is centered, and there's a cross on top, almost like it's centered within. So when you say have a safe space, whatever, if you talk to your spouse or talk to anyone, when you and I always say we want to be heard, right? Women want to be heard. So how are you supposed to listen? right? You don't just sit there, flip through channels and just sit on the couch, not say anything, right? But you have to listen with your ear, with your eye, just to, like what you said, mirroring. That's what you do, because you look at their emotion and you watch for their eye, and then you nod whenever they nod, you shake whenever they shake your head, and you listen with your heart, and you be centered within yourself. So that's like really powerful.
Yes.
And yeah.
Because you're listening for understanding. When you listening, you're coming to something with curiosity, and listening for understanding when you listen with your heart, instead of listening with your defenses and coming from a place of anger.
Right. And that's it. Compassion, empathy. And that makes people feel good, and they can release. They feel safe. Like what you said, safe space. They can release their pain. And like what you said in the cup scenario from last time, you want to pour your cup into Jeff's empty cup, and he'll say, oh yeah, I acknowledge this, and you both pour out. And that's really amazing, visual on that one. The other thing that I was thinking about is that victimhood, it's very interesting to observe. I think I did some of that too, but for years. But now I look back and I see, people around me and other people do that. It's almost like martyrism.
Oh, yeah.
They feel like
the angry martyr.
Yeah, somebody did them wrong, and now they have this persona of being victim, and that gets them some attention that they deserve, or they need, they crave. All of us want attention. And then they see the world through the eyes of victim. So they almost attract, or they interpret everybody's out there to get them. So the lens they see is through the victimhood, and their life is tumultuous because they're always being hurt. They're always being done wrong by somebody. So a lot of times I would, ask to really self-reflect, say, hey, what if I get out this victim persona? What if I am, that also goes with forgiveness. Once you forgive, you step out, because there's no prison. There's no prison, but you are in prison. You can walk out anytime, let go, walk out, stop being the victim, because the power is not worth it.
Well, and I think also something that I've seen with that too is kind of like you're using the word prison. So I'm thinking of people who have been inmates there for their whole life, right? So you've grown up, you as an adult, let's pretend you go into prison for, some very bad crime at like 21 years old, and you get out when you're 50. So you've been in prison your whole adult life. Everything you know is the prison. That's all you know. You don't have the skills or the knowledge or even the understanding to live outside of the prison. And so your identity is a prisoner. And so often people will, because they don't have the skills and they identify as that, they'll end up back in prison because that's all they know. And it's really their safe place.
Yes.
And it's their identity. So I think that's the hard thing too about getting out of the victim identity for people, is that if you say you started being a victim of with experiences, sorry, I don't know why I can't talk, really young, as a child, which often happens, right? When you have compounded PTSD, it just, it starts very young. And then, like you said, it's almost like you draw more because you have that, people can pick up on that energy. And that's just who you are. That's your identity. And then people ask, well, if I'm not a victim, then who am I? And that's really scary too. So they stay stuck in that. And so I've seen that as well, where it's you really being able to empower an individual to find another identity that feels in some ways as powerful as being a victim.
That's a very good point. Yeah.
Well, they also feel, I think that a lot of people who are that have that mentality is they feel like they're more righteous because they're holding on to that. But what they're really doing is just they're just pushing away the responsibility of the whole situation.
Yeah, that's where, they feel certain part of the power. It's a power controlling thing. But Terah is right. You have to replace with something positive. Just like people who try to quit smoking, it's very hard for them to quit smoking. However, if you replace something, they love, like mountain climbing, car racing, and it's easy for them to not think about it anymore, and they automatically quit. But you have to feel that gap. You almost say, hey, if I'm not victim, who am I? I'm
Survivor.
A survivor. I am volunteering a hospital to take care of babies, or something that, you feel good about. You feel that you are here for in this world, your meaning to be here, step out.
Well, I mean, anytime you have any specific thing like a victim mentality like that, and you said a good point that it seems like it keeps happening to them. Well, they also are noticing it. They probably had a lot of good things happen to them during the exact same day.
Exactly.
They just didn't acknowledge it. I mean, they'd be the type of person that would notice every stoplight that turned red, but they don't realize they just went through 8 of them that were green, and they just don't see it.
Right.
And it's sort of like whatever you get into your mind, which is why it's important to have an idea of what you actually want to get accomplished. Because, I mean, if you're the type of person who has, and you just had a kid, you're going to walk through the mall and you're going to notice a lot of stores that have kids stuff in them. And like, oh, okay. Oh, I didn't even realize they had a kids department, or, oh, that's a neat little thing. Oh, I do need a stroller that does this. And but if you're the type of person that you're always looking for businesses, you'll walk through a mall and you'll go, oh, this is an opportunity here. I could get something. So it's a matter of where you put what your focus is.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I think also, yes, being very intentional about that and understanding that somebody's message that they have about themselves, going back to the schema, the neural networks that are built, is that someone might have a message about themselves that says, I am unlovable, or I am not someone that people are kind to. And so, yes, like you said, Jeff, they have that confirmation bias where they're going to be looking for ways that they're unlovable or ways that people are unkind to them. And it makes sense that they would do that because, if you're 5 years old and everyone yells at you in your house and hits you, well, then you're just going to think, well, it's my fault, because that's how 5-year-olds think, which goes back to the fact that you have a wounded 5-year-old within you that you need to heal, and that is worthy of that healing, that you can have that internal dialogue with. But then the adult part of you, like you were saying, Jeff, needs to start looking for kindness and looking at ways that people are kind, because there is a lot of kindness and love in the world if you look for it. We don't get to see it a lot if we watch a lot of the news or pop culture. And so it just really reinforces a lot of that victimhood mentality, because it looks like everybody is terrible. So that makes it really hard to forgive and get out of that.
Yeah, definitely. From what Jeff's saying, when we are, I'm sure when we're pregnant and all we see is pregnant lady everywhere. And if a guy, let's say bought a, Mercedes, all he sees is everyone else drive Mercedes. It's just the lens you put on, And so whenever you're a victim, you're looking through the lens of victim, and they say, law of attraction. But in a way, it's self-fulfilling prophecy almost. Either by law of attraction, even if you believe it or not, it's just like because you see the bad and ugly, right? And so, but if you take your time, just still yourself and find one good thing on everything, just start developing that. And then you start shifting your lens. I would suggest going to nature instead of watching all the political debate, let's say, and
how to survive 2020.
Yeah.
Go in nature.
Yeah. Go in nature, because it's easier. Yeah. It's easier when you see the flower, the tree, and birds. And
Well, we need
Yes,
that, right?
yeah.
I mean, we need to be literally grounded. We need to be
Yeah.
able to have our feet on the ground.
Yes,
Real
yes.
ground, not
Real ground.
carpet.
Right.
Yeah.
So you kind of like, oh, okay, there is good. There is, wonderful things, And then start, like Jeff was saying, the gratitude journal that goes to our fourth one, but it's all linked together. Everything is
Absolutely.
all one. So I think I truly believe that. And your friend said, well, love is the answer. Love is the answer. And love actually encompasses compassion, encompasses forgiveness, encompasses gratitude. So love as a whole, we're in February here. So it is the essence, the distillation of life. What do we come? We come with nothing. We leave with nothing. What do we leave behind? We leave behind the love. We leave behind the love that we shared, how people remember us. That's it.
As Jewel says, in the end, only kindness matters.
Yes, yes, definitely.
Gotta throw a little Jewel quote in there.
Yeah, definitely. And forgiveness is really, really tough lesson. If you say, all the medicines you had to learn in this world, all the classes, and I would say this is advanced, for the thing would start with for your senior year class, I would think, and it is tough. It's tough for everybody, not one of us have it easy. I mean, yes, some people definitely suffered way more than some others like me, definitely, I have sympathy and empathy for that. But the story is each of one of us have to walk through this path. At the end, you have to release yourself. It's for the self. It's not for the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's, again, I mean, I just want to hammer this point home that you've made, Amy, in the first podcast that we did on the 4 pillars, and we've already said, but I'm just going to hammer it home again. I think where people get really tripped up, and I've been there, we've all been there, I think, is that person doesn't deserve my forgiveness, and they're not worthy of that. This person did horrible things, and yes, people do horrible things. That is very valid, and you can still hate the horrible things that the person did, but love yourself enough to release them, because you don't have to hold them inside you and let them continue to poison your body, because then you're giving that person that power over you still.
Exactly. So when you were just talking and I was saying that, I was thinking when you said, do they deserve my forgiveness? By the same token, people who are hard on others, you need to ask, do I deserve my own forgiveness? That is the hardest lesson, because if you cannot forgive others, you definitely cannot forgive yourself. And that is the root of the root, I would say. Because if we judge others, if we don't let go, in the end, we are our hardest critic, our own self hardest critic. You judge yourself, you're hard on yourself more than you are to anyone. So, if you really look at the Bible, you say, if you forgive others, then God will forgive you. But, from our past conversation, God is within you. So by releasing, by forgiving others, we all make mistakes. Some of us make a lot of mistakes from not being aware, or we feel pushed and pulled by people we love, especially for people who are empathetic or for people who are pleasers. Sometimes we don't hear our own wanting and need. We ignore that. I know I did. And then we make mistakes because we ignore our own authentic self, and we did what others want us to do. And then you look back on like, who was I? Why did I make this choice? And then you become really hard on yourself. I cannot forgive myself for being so, fill the blank, selfish, so, blah, blah, blah. And then it's a terrible place to be. And, because when you cannot forgive others, you can't forgive yourself.
Well, in that case, you're re-victimizing yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
it's
if
a tough place to be.
Yeah, if you've been abused in some way, mistreated, wronged, as we all have in some way, and you're holding that inside of you, and you're having this negative self-talk around it. And let's just get down to what that comes from, and it's shame.
Yes.
And holding shame inside only hurts you again, you know, and also it is what impedes forgiveness as well of yourself and other people. And I'm just going to plug Brené Brown really quick for everybody listening, but she has great research on shame and being able to let go of shame. And a lot of us were raised with shame because it's a very strong motivator to motivate with shame. And what I mean by shame and differentiating it from guilt is that I regret that behavior that I did. I regret that I hit my friend when you're a little kid. I regret that I hit my friend versus I'm a bad girl because I hit my friend. And those messages are what spiral within us and cause that negative self-talk, which cause us to not be able to forgive ourselves, which cause us not to be able to forgive others. And so I think it's really important when you're talking to yourself, it's okay to feel guilty, right? Because we need to learn from our behaviors to improve them, but it's not okay to abuse yourself.
Correct. And they go hand in hand. It's almost like some people say, "Oh, I just want to forgive myself, but I'm going to hold this, close to my heart. I'm not going to forgive the other person." And you cannot really do that. It's like either or nothing.
Right, because it goes back to shame, right? Because when you're not forgiving someone, you are focusing on their bad character versus their bad behavior. And so if you can make that differentiation between character and behavior, now I'm not saying there aren't some people that are just rotten to the core.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, those people are out there, but most people aren't. And another Brené Brown quote is, she said, "What if people are all just doing the best that they can?" And so if you can really get there, which is hard, it sounds easy to say, but it's really hard because that's not part of our culture. Like, no, you're not doing the best you can. You just suck it up and do better. But people are doing the best they can with what they have available to them, what awareness they have. And so if you can do that for others, you can also do that for yourself, or vice versa, whichever one comes first. Some people find it easier to do that for others before they can do it for themselves. And either way is fine. But it's really about being able to see that, yes, I am doing the best that I can with what I have. However, I regret this behavior and I can improve upon it. Or, clearly this person who wronged me needs to improve upon their behavior. But in essence, I see that they did the best they can. My job, though, to protect myself is to set that boundary. I don't have to, with my understanding, allow someone to hurt me again.
Yeah, that's taking care of yourself. That's self-respect. Because, you can, like I said, you can say, "Hey, I forgive you, but I'm getting out of this situation. I don't want to deal with you anymore because you haven't achieved that place that you can respect me." And that's okay. And, a lot of times we don't know that nobody can take us where we do not want to go. We allow other people to run our lives because, of course, we're conditioned sometimes as, when we're a child, when we are more vulnerable, and then it's in a way kind of like the analogy where, how farmers, when they raise chickens for the first probably couple of months, they'll put the gates up and that's where they stayed and played. And if you take the gates away, they still stay in there, right? Because when you're vulnerable, we're conditioned to be a certain state and we don't know our power. And then as adults, you're still stuck in that I'm the victim, I cannot, I have to do what others tell me. Because when the gates is taken away, you're still in your coop. You're not walking out because you're so used to being there. Because you didn't realize you have changed. You didn't realize you're more powerful now, and you are the captain of your ship. You're the master of your fate.
And you survived it.
Yes.
Goes back to being able to realize that you survived, to look as an adult and tell your child self, guess what? You make it through this. you survive and you
Yeah.
become me.
Yeah. So, the difference between, a person who is successful or who is came through, who feel the strength versus the person still feel like a victim is that one is saying, hey, somebody did me wrong and I want them to repay me, which is most time never going to happen. And the other is like, hey, this happened to me because there's a lesson in it. If I learn it, then I can carry it through, and to my future, it'll benefit me. And somebody even put it more bravely, which is a very hard place to get to, I think. But you can try that. You can almost appreciate the experience. This say, hey, I know this happened to me is terrible, but on the flip side, I appreciate this experience that made me stronger, make me love more, make me see more. And that's a really big step, and I admit that. But if you kind of almost like strive toward that, if you don't meet that goal, you're 80% there, that's pretty good.
I call that embracing the suck.
Yeah, there
Right?
you go. Nice.
I mean, being able to this thing really sucked, but you learned your strength by surviving this thing.
Yeah, and it's good to tell yourself, hey, this thing sucked. I mean, it's good to acknowledge that. Sometimes if we say, we don't acknowledge that. We say, oh, I just need to tough through this. It's going to be okay. And you are still in square one. It's like...
Yeah, because you're not validating. You're not validating the experience
you
that
have
you're
to
having.
validate yourself.
Yeah.
You say, hey, it really sucked that what happened to me. Any other person probably cannot survive it, but I did.
I'm getting a visual in my head here of something I've never heard anybody say, but I'm just gonna.
It's your quote, Jeff.
I'm just gonna flow with this. I'm thinking that. So think about everything that you do. It is like every experience, every little thing is like a building block, and every one of these blocks, they ultimately, they're building, say, a pyramid.
Yeah.
So it's building a pyramid or whatever. If you're the type of person that holds on to something, you're building up all these other blocks because you are going through life. They're still happening, but you're not actually building onto the pyramid because you're still just stuck on this level.
Yeah.
And you're not allowing it to get on it. But the person who can just go, oh, forget it. Just keep putting these on here before they know it. They're on top of this awesome pyramid that's already done. And if you just looked at the pyramid from a distance or anything, you would every block would look the same. You wouldn't even know any difference. You'd be like, when some of those were really hard, like that was a real struggle. But from a distance, and as you're looking down, you're just like, hey, I wouldn't be up here if I didn't have every one of those blocks.
Exactly. That's really good analogy. Like think about Lego blocks, and also, the present. You are wasting all your time trying at the past. You're not building toward.
You're
the
just
future.
getting a pile of blocks over here.
Yeah.
You're not building it up.
Right. So this is a question for you, Terah. I feel a lot of times, not bashing any psychologist, but I feel a lot of emphasis has been on past regression, or look at the past, try to resolve that. Do you think, in your opinion, we should maybe change the focus a little bit more to, the present? Because I feel like if we keep on looking at the past, keep on trying to figure out the past, we're kind of stuck there. It's like we're not, you pay so much attention to it, almost like the law of attraction. You are going, hey, keep on just like almost making you stuck. But I feel a lot of, in the psychiatrist field, I don't know, it's much but personal opinion, a lot of emphasis goes there. Do you think there should be a little bit change of emphasis toward, hey, yes, this sucked. How do I let go, with grace, with, forgiveness, and how do I build upon that going forward?
Well, so you're talking about psychoanalysis, which is one type of a very large type of therapeutic technique within psychology. And so my nutshell, or I don't know how long this is going to take, so maybe more than a nutshell, but the way that I see that is that the past at some level impacts the present. Yeah. So in order to shift that past from impacting the present, you have to have some understanding of the past, right?
For sure.
So I'm a big pattern person.
Okay.
So when I'm working with, and I focus on relationships, that's my area. So I'll talk about relationship patterns. So which often brings up relational trauma and things like that from people's childhood and other relationships and things. So what I do, the work that I do around that with clients is that we need to understand those patterns to be able to change them now.
Got it.
So if we have the understanding that, okay, my parents fought a lot. And so now I understand why I avoid conflict. Okay. And actually by avoiding conflict, what I end up doing is avoiding connection. And that leads me into not having connective, safe relationships because I don't show up as myself.
Yeah.
So we need to understand that this is why, to be able to see, okay, this is the pattern. And then this is how I start rewiring my neural network by creating a new pattern.
I get that.
So yes, I think that in psychoanalysis, people can really get stuck in the past. And so you're right, that has been a trend. But the way I see it is you need to visit there, but then you come back from the visit and you take what you've learned, like time travel, you take what you've learned to be able to change your future by changing the present way that you interact with somebody, which again goes back to the safe conversations, right? Because you have all these wounds and you've created these neural pathways, but if you have a wound in relation, you only heal in relation. So for instance, there have been wounds that I brought into my relationship with Jeff, and he's wounds that he's brought into his relationship with me as well. And of course, one of them is not being heard. So for him to be able to mirror and validate me, that has healed over time. That has healed these wounds that I don't need to go back and revisit anymore. I don't need to go back and think about how that one time my dad didn't listen to me, or the teacher that did this or whatever. I don't need to go back there because I feel healed in relation to Jeff. And I can choose people to be around me that will continue to heal me instead of reinforcing these old patterns by choosing people that continue to wound me. I can do that with the understanding of the past, but I'm bringing it into the healing present.
Yeah, that's really good explanation. I like when you say, you look at patterns and you use that as a tool to go on forward. And like our last few conversation, we were talking about that, if a couple have a fight, you probably triggered, most time it's not you. It's like you triggered the child in him or the child in her that was wounded before. And it's just like, that's a hot button, right? Yeah. And so it's not what you said or what you did, but he or she was feeling defensive because this trauma that you don't see as, he or she was a child. So you need to almost detach yourself from being blamed, see from, like what we said, take a step back, go for a walk and go, hey, is it me? Or is it me or the situation, or is it something got triggered, with this poor 7-year-old? So,
yes. And so the understanding of that past helps inform the present, where if Jeff and I have an argument and I realize that it's his 12-year-old self that's triggered, I don't need to go be like, Jeff, tell me again about this experience that happened to you when you were 12. But it does make me sensitive to that. And then I know, okay, I really need to double down on making sure he feels heard here because that will be really healing to him. So it informs me of what I can do as his partner to help him heal.
Yeah.
And then he knows too, I need to tell her, I really need to feel heard here. Like the other day we were talking about something and I was like, I need you to validate me now, because I needed that. I was triggered about something that wasn't related to him, and he knew that, and I needed him to validate me, and he did. And it was like, I was all amped up and my heart rate was up and all this stuff. And when he did, it was just like, It was like he was like petting a scared bunny, and then the bunny calmed down and stopped shivering. Like that's what it was for me.
Yeah.
And that's how powerful that is, because I didn't need to go into why I was triggered.
Yeah.
He knew because he knows about my past, but
Yeah.
we didn't need to visit that.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah. And I applaud you for doing that, for asking, because a lot of us women don't ask. You know, we want our spouse or you to automatically know what to do. So you being the therapist, you say, hey, please validate me. And that's amazing. And if all of us can say that, and instead of just assume our partners knows us best and knows exactly what we need.
We're big dumb animals.
You ask.
Don't be taking the easy road. I know how smart you are.
No coughing out. Yeah. And and also I think the more important is self-reflect, because when you say, hey, I know this is what his trigger is, then I'm going to, rub the fur the right way. But we also need, from what you said, we also need to know what our own hot buttons are. And whenever we lash out, we go, oh, that's not what my spouse caused me to feel. It's my own childhood trauma that made that, and I should not do so, say so and so, and be so angry with my spouse. And I think that's even more important, that you are aware what triggers you have.
Yeah. So I think that's the worthiness of going into that work, but not staying there, right? Because again, you can create your own prison by continuing to build those bricks. Again, thinking about bricks and everything and blocks and stuff made me think of Pink Floyd's The Wall. And that's really what that whole album, and they made the movie about it and everything, is about, is showing how somebody builds up a wall because they stay locked inside their past experiences.
Yeah. So I think it's very valuable for the listener to hear that, hey, I don't need to keep on visiting my past and hope once I can heal, then I can go forward. The wheel's always turning. You cannot stop the wheel. So you have to work on your present and see what the past, and keep on working on your, present, having the awareness of the past. Some people just okay, I need to get everything cleared out in my past before I can go on. And then you're not running anymore. No,
you're not in
right?
the present. You're just, you're imprisoning yourself yet again.
You're right. So,
Yeah. Great
good.
point. I like it. Always come up with good things. Well, earlier you brought up oneness and said you wanted to come back to that, and I want to make sure we have time to talk about that. So can you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think that's a big topic. It's like an hour topic. I think a lot of our experiences is for us to come back to know that we are one. I remember as a child, we used to just kid with each other, because we'll ask each other, what's 1 + 1, right? And it's 2, right? But we all know the most, the very highly educated, above PhD, the mathematical society, they are still trying to figure out what is 1 + 1. And they actually figure out 1 + 1 is 1. And there's a whole bunch of math going in there, very high, quantum physics.
We're going to have to tell our daughter that. She's going to blow away the kindergartners.
Yeah, but there's some...
What does
I
that
think
mean?
they're still trying to figure it out. And it's metaphysical for me. I don't understand all the math. Being an engineer, I still don't understand the math going into 1 + 1 is 1. But for me, it means me as a whole person join another person who is a whole, and we make one. And a lot of time when you go to a relationship, people think, okay, I am faulty and I'm going to marry somebody who compensate me. And so we make, 2, or we make better. But you cannot really do that, because you cannot put the healing onto someone else. The only thing that marriage can survive is that you know yourself to be whole, and the other person know themselves as a whole. Because if you have two bowls, each have a place that's like broken, once out of blue moon, the two chipped part go past each other, you feel like it's a whole. But a lot of times this whole will show. If you stack two bowls together close to each other, the water will leak out through the holes. So the thing is, yes, we are imperfect. Nobody is perfect. However, you have to love and see yourself as how divine sees you, as a perfect self, and respect yourself, and love yourself as you want to be loved. You cannot say, hey, I don't know what I want. I can't love myself, but I want somebody to love me. You cannot ask somebody to love you if you cannot even give them to yourself. How can you ask? A lot of times we have this, Cinderella princess idea, or, the Disney world, like, oh, I'm going to find my prince and then I'll be whole, and, he's going to save me. He'll know what I want more than I do. It's not romantic. It's so silly. People have this idea that I want to have a partner to know what I want before I do. How can you ask somebody to do that when you cannot do it for yourself? You have to self-reflect. You have to know who you are. You have to know what you need, what you want, and you have to be able to verbalize it, and you have to, ask for, and without expecting someone else to give it to you. So for me, it's, nobody completes you. You complete yourself, all the movies you complete. You're my other half. You complete me. No.
Jerry Maguire. That's that part just really pisses me off. But
Therapeutically chosen to be 50% of a relationship, you must first be 100% of a person. Amen to that.
That was our little quote for another business I started a while ago. But the whole idea was to get people to be one and whole, and to really understand all their patterns and all of that kind of stuff before getting into a relationship, to do that work.
Yeah.
And, I think that we still heal in relation to others. But again, that goes back to that understanding of what needs healing and how the healing can happen.
Yeah.
And being able to know that you're worthy of that love by giving it to yourself first, like you were saying.
Definitely. And
so when you talk about oneness, are you also talking about just the connection of humanity on a quantum level as well?
I think so. Lately we have coronavirus in China, and it just keep on bringing me to this idea that how we are metaphorically, I feel it's a wake-up call to us that we are all one in this world, because there's no, I'm talking about the virus, it can spread from people to people, it can spread continent to continent. You cannot build a wall and show the virus, right? It's like, our world is so small. You have to be loving and take care of each other, because take care of the others, take care of the self. Take care of your neighbors, take care of yourself. You don't say, oh, okay, I'm going to take care of myself and I'm going to ignore all this happening, right? Because someday, if you don't take care of others, if the virus spread, you're the one who's going to get hurt too. But if at the let go, you say, okay, we're all one. I'm going to help out. I'm going to have this global consciousness, we're all one. And then when we heal others, we heal ourselves. So to me, it's like,
Absolutely. I've experienced that personally as a therapist, working with people in healing. It heals me too. Yeah. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's just the journey that we're on with each other.
Yeah. And every relationship, every person we meet, it's a mirror to ourselves. It's a reflection to ourselves. What we, I was thinking I was going to talk about this in the next session about love, but
we'll give a little preview, and then we'll get deeper into that. We'll give a teaser.
Yes. So let's have a teaser on love. When people say, hey, I love you, I miss you, what do they really mean?
Are you asking me? Or do you have an answer? Is this
I have a
kind of
rhetorical
question? Is this rhetorical?
So it just hit me really powerful. Hey, what they mean is I love myself, the person I see myself when I'm with you. It's not like I miss you, I love you. It's like when I'm with you, the person I see of myself, I'm in love with this person.
Actually, when people are together, they co-regulate emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
It's from the very beginning, mothers co-regulate, fathers co-regulate with babies. And so when people say, I miss you, they actually, the lack of somebody being there, and it was Bianca Aceveda that was talking about this, who is a neuroscientist and studies love in the brain. Mm-hmm. And you actually are chemically withdrawing from somebody in your brain when they're not around you, especially if it's someone you're co-regulating with, like an intimate partner or even a good friend. Mm-hmm. When they're gone, you're not producing as much oxytocin. So you just don't feel as good. You don't feel as well as all is well as much as if the person is around.
Yes.
So that's amazing that we're created that way to be in relation to others.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Love. I can't wait to talk about love next time.
We'll talk about love next time.
Yes. Well,
good ending.
Yeah. So Amy, I mean, every time you come talk to us, it's wonderful.
Thank you. You know how to guide conversation. Thank you.
Can't wait for the next one. So next time, everybody, we are going to get really deep into love, which I'm super excited about, 'cause love is my favorite thing.
Yes, mine too.
It's not really even a thing, is it? Love is my favorite. I'll just say.
You're wearing pink today.
I am. Yes. And I even bought a shirt recently that said, love is the answer, after Emily. I learned that from Emily. I was like, I'm buying a shirt because I just need to remind myself that is the answer to every question.
It is.
Even what is 1 + 1? Because it's not 2, it's 1.
It is love. Okay. It's a whole.
People look that up. I need to look that up now. So.
I need to look it up too, but it was just fun. You go around, as a kid, you go around to your friends. What's 1 + 1? No, you're wrong. It's 1.
Totally. Yeah, we're totally going to look that up and then make sure Audrey gets to do that now that, she's in kindergarten. She's going to blow them away.
Yes.
Yep. Thank you again. This was
Terah.
beautiful. Thank you,
Jeff.
listeners, for being a part of this on this journey with us. As you were listening to us, we're all having the same thoughts, and so we're connected.
Yes.